My parents chose to take my sister on vacation instead of me. Later, she ended up ruining the family trip and got arrested. My parents chose to take my sister on vacation instead of me. Unfortunately, she ended up ruining the family trip and got arrested. Now, they have finally witnessed her true nature. I, 23F, have a younger sister, Amma, 18F, whom I firmly believe embodies the essence of malevolence in this world. For years, I have endeavored to persuade my parents to recognize the truth, but they remained unconvinced. Until now. To provide some background, my relationship with my parents has always been a bit strained, largely due to Alma. My parents hold her in high regard, especially since my mother experienced a miscarriage, losing the baby, which profoundly impacted her. Alma, who arrived a few years later, was seen as their miracle child, a shining light of hope and joy that mended the wounds of their earlier sorrow. My parents lavished her with love and care, making her the focal point of our family world. During our childhood, my affection for my younger sister was undeniable. I gradually came to understand that Alma possessed an extraordinary skill for manipulation that seemed to elude the comprehension of my family members. She had a knack for bending the narrative to suit her needs, expertly portraying herself as the victim. On my birthday, I received an incredible antique pocket watch from my grandparents. I felt immense joy when my grandmother revealed that it was a cherished family heirloom. However, Alma seemed undeniably envious and persistently inquired whether I could share it with her. I declined because it was a present intended for me on my birthday. She attempted to convince our parents, but given that it originated from our grandparents, they were somewhat limited in their options. That evening, Alma, fully aware of my deep-seated fear of spiders, slyly tucked a house spider into my pillowcase, guaranteeing that I would stumble upon it as I settled in for the night. I was jolted awake by the terrifying feeling of a spider scudding across my skin, and I couldn't help but scream. My parents hurried into my room, worry etched on their faces. Alma feigned surprise and concern, but later, when we were alone, she confessed with an unsettling grin that she had placed the spider there as a lesson for me. I was taken aback by the nonchalant way she admitted it, showing no signs of regret. There was a moment I recall vividly when I found myself infatuated with my classmate, Noah. Mustering all my courage, I decided to invite him over for a movie. The anticipation filled me with a delightful giddiness, and I had meticulously chosen a dress that I hoped would catch his eye. However, the moment Noah entered our home, Alma purposefully knocked over a glass of juice, soaking my dress, and burst into laughter, mocking me. Feeling utterly humiliated, I found myself in a situation where I had to change, desperately attempting to conceal my shame. As if that wasn't enough, Alma began recounting embarrassing tales from my childhood, leaving me feeling completely mortified. She kept us company the whole time we were watching the movie. As Noah prepared to depart, Alma flashed a smirk and remarked that he could certainly find someone better than me. Noah, clearly uneasy throughout the encounter, made a swift exit. I was utterly astonished by the sheer cruelty and cunning nature of my younger sister. Throughout the years, I recounted her antics to my parents on multiple occasions, yet they consistently attributed it to her youth and naivety. They were unable to perceive her true essence. Whenever I voiced my concerns, they simply brushed me off and regarded me as the family's troublemaker. Eventually, I ceased to voice my thoughts about her. Alma remained the beloved child, while I, ever candid, frequently sensed my position as the outsider within my own family. I dedicated myself to my studies and successfully gained admission to a reputable college. This opportunity allowed me to leave our home and pursue a more fulfilling life in college. Yet, each time I came home during breaks, Amma unmistakably conveyed her disdain for my presence in the house. She would intentionally overlook me, declining to partake in even the simplest exchanges. At family meals, she would steer clear of sitting beside me or interject if I was engaged in conversation with our parents. Her relentless attempts to diminish my presence clearly indicated her disdain for my company, as she seemed intent on making my visits as uncomfortable as she could. Amma would often play with my belongings, feigning a need to borrow them, yet she frequently ended up damaging or misplacing them instead. When I attempted to voice my concerns, my parents remained unresponsive, instead encouraging us to find a way to coexist peacefully. Consequently, I started to steer clear of returning home during breaks. I often found myself crafting reasons to share my breaks with the families of my college friends instead. To be honest, my parents were fairly understanding and attributed it to my independence and desire for a little time away from home. Upon graduating from high school, Amma found herself without the grades necessary for college, leading her to choose community college as her next step. This meant that she was never required to leave our parents' home. Currently, I am employed at a multinational corporation in San Francisco, and I truly find satisfaction in my work. I occasionally keep in contact with my parents, but I seldom make the trip back home. I have no communication with Alma at all. Now, turning to the narrative, my father recently experienced a near-fatal heart attack. By a stroke of luck, he managed to survive and was swiftly taken to a hospital. Upon receiving my mother's call about the situation, I promptly arranged my travel plans and returned home to support them. My father received a variety of prescriptions from the doctors, who emphatically recommended that he begin an exercise regimen. Since his discharge, my father has conveyed a desire to spend more time with us as a family, sharing how fortunate he feels to have been rescued from the edge of death. I grasped my dad's perspective, so I chose to spend a few more days at our home. My position allows for remote work, so it was quite manageable. Yet, I observed that Alma was profoundly unsettled by my return. I made every effort to steer clear of her, considering we were both older now, and I wished to avoid any conflict following our dad's heart attack. One morning at breakfast, my father proposed that we embark on a family vacation, noting that it had been quite a while since we had all traveled together. At first, I was hesitant, but understanding its significance to my dad, I decided to go along with it. Alma wasn't exactly excited about it, but she felt she had no option but to comply with the plan. All the arrangements for our flights and accommodations were meticulously handled by my father. I meticulously arranged my time off from work ahead of schedule and communicated with my colleagues to refrain from reaching out during this period, as I truly wished to savor meaningful moments with our parents. Upon our arrival at the airport, I discovered that my flight ticket had been canceled. I shared a bewildered glance with my father, who continued to assert that he had reserved and paid for my ticket. Upon further investigation, we discovered that among the 4 tickets, the one specifically bearing my name had been inexplicably canceled. As I stood there, grappling with the unfolding scenario, my gaze shifted to Alma. She wore a cunning smile as she gazed at me. It was a familiar look, one I had encountered countless times, the same expression she donned when she had deftly executed one of her clever schemes. In that instant, it dawned on me that she was the one who had taken the step to cancel my ticket, likely using my father's computer. I raised my voice at her while she stood there, a smile plastered on her face. I made sure to inform my parents that this was all Alma's fault, as she had never wanted me to join this family vacation from the very beginning. My mother instantly rejected my assertion, insisting that my sister would never engage in such behavior. She proceeded to explain that I ought to let go of my jealousy towards my younger sister, insisting that my ticket cancellation was merely a freak accident. My father attempted to explain that this could have been an error on the part of the airline, suggesting that I shouldn't hold my sister responsible. I felt an overwhelming sense of frustration that my parents were unable to comprehend that their cherished miracle child could be involved in such a deception. At this juncture, I found myself utterly powerless. My ticket had already been cancelled, and there were no alternative flights available for that day. Although I could have caught a flight the following day, the thought of heading back home, arranging a new flight, and doing it all alone was far from appealing. This was meant to be a trip for the family, after all. I felt a sense of apprehension about the prospect of sharing a room with Alma during this trip. I had wished for her growth over the years, yet if she was indeed responsible for the cancellation of my flight ticket, I couldn't shake the thought of what other plots she might devise to ruin my trip. My father was initially reluctant, proposing that they could all return home and devise a new trip later. However, he soon began reminiscing about how long it had been since he last enjoyed a vacation. My mother concurred, explaining that since I frequently travel for work, I wouldn't be missing much on this trip if I chose not to attend. Their renouns truly affected me. It seemed as though they were hoping I would urge them to carry on with their vacation in my absence. I expressed that they were free to proceed with their plans if they wished, and they quickly concurred. While I appreciated the effort and resources they had invested in the tickets and accommodations, it saddened me to realize that my presence seemed inconsequential to them. It was evident that they were perfectly content embarking on this family vacation as a trio. There I stood, solitary at the airport, watching as my parents and Alma embarked on their eagerly awaited vacation. I chose to go back to my home in San Francisco, feeling the weight of solitude in our family house was too much to bear for another day. I made every effort to move past the incident and concentrated on savoring the remainder of my leave that I had already planned from my job. I rekindled friendships from the past and immersed myself in literature, transforming my time off into a personal retreat. While on the trip, my parents would occasionally video call me, and I could see just how much they were relishing their time away from me. It felt as though my absence had no impact on their journey whatsoever. While I wasn't particularly devastated about missing the vacation, a sense of exclusion lingered within me. It served as yet another poignant reminder of the favoritism that had perpetually lingered within our family. I always wished that one day they would recognize Alma's true nature, and it seems my wish has finally been fulfilled. Several days into their vacation, I found myself waking up to a flurry of missed calls from my mother. Concerned that my father's health could have declined unexpectedly, I promptly returned her call. Fortunately, she answered, but her voice was filled with deep distress. I inquired about her well-being, and she proceeded to share that something profoundly distressing had occurred. It seems my parents had observed that my father's vital heart medications were vanishing little by little each day. The situation was dire. My father's fragile health left no room for him to skip his medication. They found themselves in an unfamiliar land, uncertain whether the same medication could be found beyond the borders of the United States. They felt a deep sense of worry over the missing pills and scoured their room thoroughly, yet found nothing. My mother visited Alma's hotel room, located next door, to borrow some sunscreen while Alma was away. To her complete astonishment and distress, she found all the missing medicines meticulously hidden inside Alma's bedside table. A chilling revelation washed over her, prompting an immediate call for my father. He burst through the door and discovered all his medication that had been missing for the past few days. It seems this was the moment they realized that their cherished daughter, the so-called miracle child, had been deliberately endangering my father's health and placing him in significant danger. My mother's voice trembled as she inquired whether they ought to confront Alma regarding this. I requested that she refrain from discussing this with Alma until they returned home. They had to collect their reflections, feelings, and proof to confront Alma with the irrefutable reality. Engaging with Alma at this moment seemed pointless, as she possessed an uncanny ability to twist situations to her advantage, likely fabricating excuses to dodge accountability. Yet, it seems that an unforeseen event unfolded that evening, leading my parents to confront her about it. A late-night call from my father shattered the stillness, his voice quivering as he delivered the news that Alma was behind bars. I was completely surprised. He described how Alma erupted into a full-blown tantrum when they inquired about the medications, hurling objects and shouting insults. Her anger was directed mainly at my father, blaming him for arranging a ticket for me when he should have never permitted my presence on their family vacation. She warned them that if they persisted in their relationship with me, she would impart a lesson they would never forget. Alma's outbursts intensified, and the situation quickly spiraled out of control, prompting a call to the authorities from someone at the hotel. Upon the officer's arrival, she remained agitated and directed insults at them, resulting in her being taken into custody. Alma was set to be released after 24 hours, and at that moment, my parents were powerless to intervene. In their urgency to get back home following Alma's release, my parents made attempts to change their flight schedule. Yet, their aspirations were dashed upon the unsettling realization that their passports and wallets had vanished. It appears that Alma had either thrown away their passports or tucked them away somewhere, leaving them stranded in a foreign land without any passports or wallets. It seems this was the moment when my parents began to truly recognize my sister's authentic self. My mother, who had steadfastly stood by Alma through the years, was now pleading with me for assistance, as they were without funds or the necessary documentation to leave that place. She found herself engulfed in a whirlwind of emotions, stunned and heartbroken by the revelation of her daughter's true essence. I assured them not to fret, explaining that I would send them money through Western Union, but they needed to locate their passports first in order to make their way back home. I was convinced that Alma had not thrown them away. My parents were finally coming to understand that I had been the truthful one all along regarding her behavior, and they appreciated my support, even though they hadn't included me in this vacation. They expressed regret for their actions. Though a part of me longs for the ability to forgive my parents, I find it difficult to dismiss the lingering sense that their favoritism towards my sister has left me feeling deprived of their love for all these years. So, Ida, my parents went on this vacation without me, and now that they've experienced it, they return pleading for my forgiveness? Update 1. Each day, my parents reach out to share updates, and my anxiety about their situation continues to rise. After Alma was released from jail the following day, my parents confronted her, insisting she return their passports or face the threat of authorities being called on her once more. With no alternatives left, Alma finally disclosed the location of their hidden passports. Upon returning home, my parents confronted Alma, making it unmistakably clear that she was required to pack her belongings and depart. It was unmistakably evident that they had arrived at their limit, ultimately coming to terms with the reality of their daughter's deceitful and damaging behavior. She could once more endanger his well-being by taking his medications. This ignited yet another heated argument between Alma and my parents. In the heat of the moment, Alma unleashed a torrent of accusations towards my parents, revealing her deep-seated anger and resentment. She expressed to my parents her reluctance to share them with anyone else, asserting that she felt cornered when they extended the invitation to me for the trip. She continued to assert that my parents ought to disown me, stressing that she was more than sufficient for both of them. In that instant, my parents likely grasped the profound nature of her jealousy and the degree to which she harbored resentment towards my position within our family. As they attempted to soothe her, she continued to hurl accusations their way, and in a surge of desperation and fury, she declared that she would spread the word about how they had failed her in her childhood and wronged her throughout her early years. She was essentially poised to charge them with parental negligence. Alma subsequently warned that she would contact the police and fabricate accusations against our parents if we persisted in asking her to leave. This truly frightened my parents, as these false accusations could place them in a challenging situation, especially given their esteemed status as doctors in our community. The very idea of their reputation being tarnished by unfounded claims has left them feeling confined and uneasy. Recently, Alma has increasingly complicated our parents' lives. Upon discovering that they had been in regular communication with me lately, she became extremely upset and began shattering dishes in her fury. It's even more frustrating that she continues to take their car keys and hide them, making it difficult for them to get to work each day. This evening, my mother reached out to me, her voice trembling with emotion after yet another distressing event at dinner. Alma threw a major fit and shouted at them, insisting that she wanted my mother to prepare a meal for her. When she declined due to her exhaustion from work, Alma erupted in fury, shattering furniture throughout the house. She retreated to her room and cranked the music up to an ear-splitting volume, effectively drowning out any chance our parents had of enjoying a restful night. The circumstances continue to deteriorate, profoundly affecting my parents both emotionally and mentally. My worries are growing about what could unfold in the future. Although I once believed my parents would recognize Alma's true character, I now find myself concerned that she may actually endanger them. At this moment, I find myself unable to return home, as it could potentially provoke her further and result in even more intense confrontations. I am striving to convince my parents to seek legal counsel so we can discover a lasting resolution to this persistent issue. Pursuing legal action appears to be the most effective means of safeguarding my parents and bringing harmony back to our family. Update 2. Alma has been taken into custody. As many of you foresaw, with Alma's escalating antics, this was inevitable. One night, she confronted our parents with a knife amid a heated argument. This filled my parents with fear, prompting them to contact the authorities. The officers promptly apprehended her, formally charging her with assault. With Alma in custody, our parents concluded it was time to seek a more lasting resolution. They sought the guidance of an attorney who provided insights into the legal procedures for evicting her from their residence. A formal eviction notice was filed, stating that she must vacate the premises. They understood the challenges involved, yet it was essential to ensure greater safety. Our parents decided against pursuing any charges against her. Their main desire was simply for her to leave. They secured her release from jail and presented her with an official notice stating that she was required to vacate the premises. The document contained all the necessary legal details outlining her obligations and the timeline for her departure. My parents ensured that every step was meticulously followed, leaving no room for Alma to contest it. Subsequently, they proceeded to the courthouse accompanied by their attorney to initiate the eviction proceedings. It involved initiating legal action against Alma. This situation was quite challenging for my parents, as they were facing their own daughter in court. A profound sense of sadness and guilt enveloped them, leaving them with the feeling that there was no alternative left to consider. The court ultimately issued a formal decree stating that Alma must vacate the premises. If she chose not to leave voluntarily, they would possess the legal authority to remove her from the premises. Alma will be leaving by next week. My parents can finally exhale, feeling a sense of relief as they move closer to reclaiming their home and tranquility. The journey has been challenging, yet there is a sense of optimism that improvement will come. Once Alma transitions to the next chapter, I have maintained communication with them during this challenging time and intend to invite them to San Francisco for a few weeks. It serves as an opportunity for them to unwind and find some peace after everything they have experienced. They could definitely benefit from a change of scenery and some time to escape the stress that Alma has brought upon them. Additionally, it presents an opportunity for us to enjoy some meaningful moments together, and I am eager to offer my support in every way possible. Update 3. I've received a multitude of comments on my post, and it's taken me a bit of time to sift through them all. Several of you have proposed that we look into the possibility of having Alma evaluated to determine if there could be a mental health concern involved. Since she is an adult, we cannot compel her to attend a checkup if she does not want to. Given her unexpected and intense reactions, we prefer not to provoke her further and complicate an already delicate situation. As I noted in my previous update, my parents traveled to San Francisco to spend a few days with me. They have arrived to seek a respite after the challenges they faced in recent months. Yesterday evening, as we convened around the dining table in my snug apartment, my parents started to share their thoughts with me, their voices tinged with humility and regret. They confessed that they had been oblivious to Alma's true nature throughout the years and pleaded for my forgiveness. My father conveyed his regret for not listening to my warnings sooner. He acknowledged that they had never anticipated Alma's transformation and failed to recognize the reality hidden behind her captivating exterior. My mother reflected my father's feelings and recognized the seriousness of their error in overlooking my worries regarding Alma's behavior throughout the years. Her voice quivered as she expressed the anguish of understanding how they had let me down by prioritizing her. I expressed my gratitude for their initiative in reaching out for my forgiveness. I recounted numerous distressing memories from the years of suffering I faced because of Alma's behavior. My parents listened, completely taken aback and filled with dismay, as I revealed the depth of what I had faced alone. They recognized the suffering I had endured and conveyed sorrow for the loneliness I experienced within my own family. My parents shared how their favoritism towards Alma had obscured their judgment, as they had never anticipated becoming pregnant with her and always viewed her as their miracle baby. With heartfelt sincerity, they implored me for forgiveness for all those years. It was a moment filled with mixed emotions, as I had longed for their recognition. Although it wasn't the perfect method to repair our relationship, it noted a pivotal moment that introduced essential honesty and clarity into our family dynamic. For the first time in years, we were genuinely confronting the challenges that had burdened our family. I expressed that rebuilding my trust would require some time, and we all came to a consensus to navigate this journey together. I intend to fully embrace the moments I have with my family during their visit over the next few days. As the days went by, my parents and I immersed ourselves in the vibrant streets of San Francisco, savoring leisurely meals and cherishing the moments spent in each other's company. The journey to reconnect has been significant, as we work to mend the bonds that were strained by years of favoritism and denial. I realized that their choice to find comfort in my presence was not merely about escaping the physical proximity to Alma but rather a longing to restore the family bonds they had nearly fractured. A new beginning was essential for them, and it was equally vital for me. My parents and I have had conversations about how to proceed with Alma. She is presently residing at the home of a friend. We cannot just leave her behind, regardless of the chaos she has brought into our lives. My mom and dad carry a deep sense of duty towards their daughter, despite her actions being beyond forgiveness. We have accepted that her behavior may not simply stem from willful mischief but could reflect more profound underlying issues. We intend to investigate the option of a mental health evaluation to gain a clearer insight into her condition. Nonetheless, given that Alma is an adult, we cannot compel her to undergo such an assessment, so we aim to discover a method to motivate her to pursue help on her own accord. My parents intend to contact Alma when they return home to explore her willingness for a conversation. I prefer not to reach out to her as she is still managing the situation for the sake of her mental well-being. Given the previous instances of aggression and violence, I have suggested to my parents that they meet her in a public setting, where she would be compelled to manage her emotions. Our main objective is for Alma to understand our viewpoint and, above all, to feel the profound love and care we have for her. It's not about assigning blame, but rather about coming together as a family to address the issues that have strained our relationships.